guys, it's Emma and I'm back today for you with another video. And today we're doing my November 2023 wrap up. I read some pretty damn good books in November, okay? Like I read some awesome books. And I want to talk to you guys about them today. So before we actually start the video, I would really like for you guys to go down in the description box and look at all the links there that I have for you guys pertaining to stuff going on in the world right now, including the genocide going on in Gaza right now because the temporary ceasefire has lifted, the slavery going on in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and the war going on in Sudan, all right, amongst other things, okay? So those will all be down there for you guys to look at, to educate yourselves on, to share. Also, in the comment section, let me know whether or not you guys have read any of these books, whether you liked any of these books, whether you didn't like any of these books, what books you guys read for November, the usual, right? So without any further ado, let's get right on into it. The first book that I read for the month of November was Starling House by Alix and Harrow. This is about a girl named Opal who steals in order to get money to send her brother out of the town that they live in so that he can go to school and make something of himself. And in order to do that, she goes and gets a job at the infamous Starling House, which is like this manor at the edge of town that nobody really knows who lives in there. Nobody's ever really gone onto the property and come off unscathed. And so she gets a job there and she essentially unearths a bunch of the secrets around this house. I gave this 3 stars. My biggest pro about this book is the writing. All right, I loved it. The writing in this book made me fly through it. The only gripe that I have about the writing though is that for whatever reason, this book just loved to call people ugly. It was like, okay girl, we get it. She's not conventionally attractive. We understand. She's an uggo. All right, damn. There were plot holes in here that I just came to accept, that I just wasn't gonna be able to understand them, that I just wasn't gonna understand them, period. I just didn't have an urge to understand them, if that tells you anything. The romance was iffy for me personally. The romance to me seemed a little instantaneous. I mean, at one point I was like, okay, cool, I guess we're making out in a haunted mansion. Word, girl. But as soon as the romance got to that point, it was good. Overall, for this book, it was good. It wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible. I would still recommend this. I think it's definitely an interesting story, especially if you like, I would say maybe gothic. Maybe check the genres. It wasn't amazing, but it also wasn't awful. So the next book that I read for the month of November was Did You Hear About Kitty Karr by Crystal Smith Paul. This is a dual timeline historical fiction book about the actress named Kitty Karr, and she is one of the most prolific actresses of Hollywood at this moment in time. And she passes away. And she leaves her entire fortune, entire estate, entire everything, girl, to the St. John sisters, who I want to say their timeline is set more recently, maybe a couple, if not a few years ago, somewhere around that. And everybody's like, well, why did she leave y'all the inheritance? You know, and the St. John sisters are trying to figure that out too. So this entire book is following Kitty and how she became the actress Kitty Karr, and, you know, the St. John sisters narrative alongside. I gave this book 4 stars. If there's one thing about me, I love books about old Hollywood and swiping away the veneer of glitz and glamour and essentially divulging into the ugly shit underneath. And I especially loved how Kitty's POV divulged on just how race was seen back then, how people navigated race, especially with whiteness and going back and forth over the line and passing. And I just really, really enjoyed it. It was enthralling to be able to just see this really important part of history. I really, really enjoyed the intricacies that this book gave. The only reason, though, that I docked off a star was for 2 things. There are some sentences in this book that just straight up do not make any sense, all right? The only reason I think it took me so long to read this book was because at times I'd be having to go back and reread the same sentence 3-4 times in order to understand what the hell it meant. Because, unfortunately, I think that no clarification and just sometimes bad wording were the culprits in that regard. For example, what I mean by no clarification, the sentence, Bill and Chad went to the store so that he could buy something for him. Which boy is buying something for which boy? which boy is doing the buying and which boy is going to be receiving the thing that which boy bought. You know what I mean? Now, instead of focusing on this story and this really important bit of information, I'm trying to figure out what this sentence right here means. Then the other reason why I took off a star was because, unfortunately, I think this book would have done so much better had it not been dual timeline. I thought that Kitty's POV, like I said, it was my favorite, and I also think that Kitty's POV was just so much better than Elise's POV. I felt like Elise's POV was so much more of an afterthought compared to Kitty's, and I just feel like if we had gone from Kitty's start all the way into, you know, spanning and connecting and blending into Elise's POV with the timeline as the years went by, I feel like that would have been more useful. Because this book is structured in that way, going back and forth between the two timelines, Elise's POV just seems so much more insignificant than Kitty's POV, especially with what's going on in Kitty's POV. I just absolutely loved the subject matter in this book, particularly the characters are awesome. Kitty, loved reading about her, all right? This book was just fantastic. These two I'm gonna lump in together just because I don't really have that much to say about them, and they really do come as a pair with how I read them. I took a comics books class this past semester, and we were assigned a bunch of readings, and these readings included comic books from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, whatsoever. These two comic books that I'm about to talk to you guys about were like some of the last two that we were asked to read, and these were probably the most engaging for me that we read throughout the whole class. They were Luke Cage Hero for Hire #1 by Archie Goodwin and The Cat #1 by Linda Fite. I gave both of these 3 stars. I really enjoyed both of them. I enjoyed The Cat's kind of what I felt to be a subversion of the tropes in a lot of romance comics before the 70s. And then I believe that Luke Cage Hero for Hire was published during the blaxploitation era, which was definitely really interesting to look at the aspects of that and just how, you know, what was used in the comics played into blaxploitation. And then I thought it was really interesting to study how Luke Cage and a lot of other characters and media aspects that came out during the blaxploitation era were built off of due to the response to the blaxploitation. I just thought these were really, really interesting to study from a viewpoint of just history, and especially from the history of comics as well. The next book that I read for the month of November was The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. This, oh my goodness, okay. This is about a retired sea captain named Amina al-Sirafi, and she has been recruited for one last mission, and this mission is to essentially rescue a kidnapped daughter of one of her former crewmates, and she has to essentially get the gang back together and go and rescue this girl. I loved this book, okay? I gave this book 5 stars. This book was awesome. I remember I was weary about reading it at first, plainly because a lot of the booktubers that I subscribe to that primarily read fantasy, a lot of them had said, you know, that they didn't like this book, that they thought it was too slow, and, you know, this book is like 30 something pages shy of 500 pages. Okay, so your girl was a little scared. However, this book was not slow for me in the slightest. The amount of mythological creatures and legends in this book was awesome. The setting was awesome, okay, because it's this book is set during like maybe the 12th or 13th century, I think, around the Indian Ocean. You got like bits of the language and like just so much culture in this book was awesome. The characters were great. All right, the banter in here is funny. All right, Amina herself, one of the best characters, period, that I've ever read about. She was awesome to read about, okay? Just this book was fun. There was just stuff everywhere, all right? There is nothing boring about this book, okay? Let me tell you that. There is nothing boring about this book. If you've been thinking and debating like me about whether to read this book, read it, all right? If you don't like it, you don't like it, but if you do like it, then you have a new favorite, girl. The last book that I read for the month of November, everybody, was I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast is Me by Jamison Shea. This book is about a ballerina named Laurence Mesny, and she is in a cutthroat ballet academy, one of the most prestigious in Paris, and she has been overlooked time and time again. And she's sick of it, quite frankly. She wants what she's owed. And she ventures down into the Parisian catacombs, and she offers herself up to a pulsing red river of blood that may or may not be a deity, in exchange for everything she's ever wanted, power and awe. And she gets it. And she uses that to her advantage, and sooner or later, she realizes that someone is after her. I gave this book 5 stars when I tell you this book is damn near a masterpiece. I adore this book. Like, I don't think I could ever enunciate that enough. I remember when I was trying to explain it to my mom how much I loved the writing in this book, I couldn't quite articulate it because there's so much talk of Laurence basically saying that she is a god, that she is godlike, that she wants people to worship her. There's a lot of talk of worship and benedictions and just a lot of like religious metaphors and allegories, and I really love that. All right, I love religious twists, and I think the word that I would use to describe this prose or writing in general is sermonic. All right, the entire time Laurence is giving us like a sermon that, yes, I am who I say I am. I want my justice. I want my vengeance. I want what I am owed. And you all will give it to me, whether you like it or not. I always love a story about cutthroat ballerinas. This is my book version of Black Swan. This was what I have been looking for in terms of, if you like Black Swan, then you should read this. If you like Black Swan, everybody, hello, read this book, okay? It was dark, it was disturbing, there's like body horror in here. The atmosphere that this book creates is horrifying but fascinating at the same time, where it just pulls you in. So you guys, those were all of the books that I read for the month of November. I hope that you've enjoyed. I hope that you will take these recommendations because honestly, I think I read some damn good books this month. I hope that we all have a better reading month in December. I hope that we all have a better reading year next year. I just hope that we all have a better year in general next year. Okay, you guys? So with that being said, I hope that you've enjoyed. I hope that you will continue to look out for more stuff on my channel. I hope that you guys are staying safe. And lastly, I hope that you guys have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.